Hey, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good night. I see Baslur here, for example. So for Baslur, it's probably is late at night, maybe. So hi everyone. Good to see you guys here. It's amazing to be doing this discussion with top speakers. So that's the speaker secrets. We're gonna help you improve your speaking engagement. So today we have a very special guest, and she's been already in previous initiatives that we did some interviews with her in the past, but it's very good that you have her here. I'm going to start in a minute. But before I introduce our special guest today, I just want to say hello and point you guys that there's a chat here. The whole objective is for you to ask questions, right? Because the idea is that we can have your questions answered. And so let me just say, I see Baslur here from Bangladesh, Sebastian from Canada, Pedro from Brazil, Rodrigo also from Brazil. That's very good to see you guys here. And it's going to be an amazing conversation. Get your questions ready. And because I'm going to introduce our guest here today. So hi, Ix-chel, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. So Ix-chel, she's not only a Java champion, right? But she's also an Oracle developer champion. But one of the reasons why she became a Java champion, become an Oracle developer champion, is because she created this amazing program called the Hacker Garden that actually is being done in conference all over the world, where inside the conference, instead of you just coming there to watch talks, you actually get to come and meet the speakers, sit down with people to do open source projects like this. So that's an amazing initiative that she does. She does together with Andres Almire, that we talked with him yesterday, right? So Ix-chel has been developing software and tools since 2000. Her research includes Java, dynamic language, client-side technologies, and testing, right? And not only she's a Java champion, and Oracle developer champion, but she's also an open source developer and a very prolific public speaker, right? So hi, Ix-chel. Thanks very much for joining us here.
Hi, thank you very much for having me there, Bruno. As you know, I always like to help the community. I always share the knowledge. That's what drives me.
Yes, excellent. So she's going to help you by answering your questions here, right? So Ix-chel, you said that you want to talk a little bit with everyone. So how about you start?
Yes, well, I think I can give you a different perspective, because not only I have been on the podium talking, making a session, I'm also being involved as the content committee. So we review a lot of submits. We decide which sessions to be presented in certain conferences. So sometimes people come to me and tell me, Ix-chel, I don't know what to talk about. I'm not the expert. I didn't create the technology. And this is something that you can do in a conference. We're always looking for people to provide us with real experiences. So it doesn't matter if you are part of the development team of any technology. It's also important that we get the perspective from people that are using it. So sometimes having the problems that you encounter, the experience, have you solved it? Even if you didn't solve the issue, we also want to hear about it. What else? So, of course, if you are doing something interesting and you want to share the knowledge, you want to create awareness of the library, well, that's in itself a good opportunity. Try to make it more abstract, not only center in your library, not only center in the technology you are working on. Always think about how this is reflected in an abstract layer, in a layer above. Because that's also something important. If your library is recent, if your library is not very used, sometimes it will be downvoted. But if you're saying, like, I'm going to talk about this specific topic, and I'm going to use this library as an example, then it's completely different. You're explaining the concept and you're only using the technology as an example. What else? Okay, that's another thing. We usually do demos on Code Live, and we usually have problems. Network, things doesn't work when we are up there with a lot of people looking at us. So there's a lot of people get horrible nervous. My advice to them is, if the demo is not running as you expected, don't keep quiet, keep talking. Start explaining what could be the problem. Start explaining or sharing what could be the solution, but never freeze. Another tip that really helped me in the past was when I unveil a new talk. Sometimes I get very nervous at the beginning. So what I do is I learn by heart the first 5 minutes of my session, like really without a script. I can say those 5 minutes by heart. I don't have to think about it. I simply do on off. And after those 5 minutes, then my heart rate goes down. I can relax. And then I don't have to go into this record mode or replay mode. So now this can be more interactive. What else I can tell you? Well, I have said regarding the topic, don't worry, you don't have to be the expert. We also like to hear experiences, and we are interested in good experiences and bad experiences. So only think about extracting what was interesting of your experience, that a lot of people can feel that they are sharing those situations. Do not worry about making mistakes. We all make the mistakes. Your audience knows it. Do not make it awkward. That's the only point. When there is something wrong in the conference, keep going. The other thing is, I strongly suggest people not to apologize. We do make mistakes, but continuously apologizing during the conference or during the session, it's not improving this overall quality of the session. And it will fixate the attention on the error or on the problem instead of the solution. So always fixate the attention of the audience in the solution. About how to create your presentation. There are two types that really attract the attention of the audience. Either you start with a story, like this was the problem, this was what we thought it was a good idea, and you explain how you implemented that idea, and then the conclusion, either positive or negative. So that's more like a narrative, which is really, really good, because when you start with this narrative, you can make your audience feel empathic about your topic. The other one is like presenting facts. Sometimes when we are showing benchmarks or comparing two tools, two libraries, or more than one, well, this story is not suitable. But then you have this facts, fact number 1, fact number 2. That's also very interesting. When you collaborate or when you are giving sessions, for example, in Russian conferences, they are very interesting in knowing the numbers. So if you make a claim like this is the fastest library, it usually has to come with a slide that shows the benchmark and how they can get more information about the conditions of that benchmark. So I think after seeing this, every time I provide some numbers in my sessions, or in my talks or my slides, I always provide also this. If I'm going to make a claim that this is the fastest, this is this most popular, most downloaded, more whatever the claim I'm doing, I always have supporting material. What else? I don't know. I think those are the most important that I can think of.
Okay, I've got lots of questions here for you.
Okay,
right?
Let's start.
Right. So no. So for everyone, I'm just gonna point out that the idea here is that we're gonna answer your questions. So please go here to the chat and decide and ask questions. But I do have a couple here that people submit when they registered, right? That we can talk about. So Ix-chel, one of the things that you guys said here that he's Brazilian, and his biggest challenge is to do presentation in English. And you know, I know you're here from South America, right? And you know, English is not your first language either, right?
Yes. No, not at all.
So do you have you know, do you have any advice for people that don't have English as a first language on what we can do to improve or how we can solve this fear?
Well, first of all, also consider that most of the audience is not going to be native English speakers. So when you are not an English native speaker, you're also very forgiving. So don't worry much about that, but do practice and improve. What do I mean by practice and improve? I have some friends which I trust a lot, and I always, if I'm on billing a new talk, what I do is write down the main ideas that I want to give to the audience. And then I send them to my friends, English native speakers, and they can check the grammar, they can suggest some words. And sometimes I do have rehearsals with them, or I record my talk and send them the recording, and they can provide me with feedback. So record yourself first, write down the main topics or the main ideas you want the people to have after your session. Check them so that they go crystal clear, and do a rehearsal, record it, send it to your friends.
That's an amazing tip. All right, so you said that you participate on the selection committee from talks, right?
Yes.
And so there's several questions here. I'm not going to read all of them, but there's several questions here that talk about, you know, how do I select a topic, or how, you know, what kind of topics are people are be interested in? Now, can you talk a little bit about this thing about, you know, from the organizers of conference point of view, what are interesting things that people could be talking about?
So yes, of course. I participate in this year in the Basel one content committee program, and also in the Oracle Code one and Javaland. Oracle Code one and Javaland, it's huge. I mean, we're talking about the 1,000 attendees, so we have a lot of sessions. And yes, of course, in big conferences, you already have tracks. In any size conference, you already have tracks that we are interested in these kinds of topics. And also, it's important that you know that not all the tracks have the same sessions at the end. So, for example, if it's a Java conference and there are tracks like cloud, DevOps, tools, etc., probably the most talks will be the Java course or something like that. So, of course, you have to balance. What am I passionate about talking versus what is more popular? I will always suggest you go and do the most passionate thing for you, because by default, you are going to be amazing. If you go with this is the most popular talk I can give, well, of course, that's also important. But you have to balance. You have to face that question and you have to answer. What I can tell you is, yes, there are certain limited slots per track. Yes, if you submit to the most popular track, you have more people also joining in that one. So keep that in mind. How to select the topics, as I said. Sometimes we are interested in the newest thing, but that's not always the case. Sometimes we're also interested on the perspective of the users in some technologies that do not have to be the newest ones. So it also depends. But my real advice is, if you're passionate about one topic, go with that topic.
Okay, very, very good. So, you mentioned your strategies for, for the 5 minute thing that you said when you come in, and a lot of people, that's like the question that we got most, right? People are afraid of talking, so there's all kinds of things like, I'm afraid of talking in front of a crowd, the fear of the stage, fear of public speaking. There's a lot of that, right? And it's you are an experienced speaker for many years. Do you still have any kind of fear? I mean, do you still need to do the 5 minute thing, or is that is that something that we can solve by not being afraid anymore?
No. I mean, I'm still a complete nervous wreck 5 minutes before my session. Still, my heart races like crazy. Still, I'm sweating. But what keeps me going is that I think that the things I'm explaining are worthwhile. I think a lot of people will have less problems if they knew what I'm about to talk about. So that actually is my main motivator. I always keep thinking about why it's important to me, and that helps me, like, with my fear. Mm-hmm. I'm also an introvert, so being in front of people, it's not natural to me. Not. I cannot say how difficult that is for me. But there is, and I read a lot about how to improve in this. And there was this article, this sociologist, the psychologist that was writing it, and said, the only way that we can overcome our fears is by being exposed in a controlled manner, and know how to deal with it. So that's why I always recommend people start by talking at your jobs, meetings, less people. All the people that is there, because if you go to that jog, you have at least familiar faces. So do that. Propose in your office. Let's have 1 hour, one morning, and I will give you some ideas about my session, or discuss it. That is going to be better for your company. You are sharing the knowledge internally, you're getting experience, and you are facing your fear of speaking out. And the other good thing about it is that they will have feedback, a technical feedback, because if you have a good friend that speaks English quite well, chances are he's also not very technical. So if you speak with your colleagues, then they have this technical feedback that can improve your session. Cool. Okay, I see a question about if I move while I'm in the podium. I do move while I'm in the podium, because this was another tip for one of my mentors. And he used to say, you can use the space to explain or make the best of highlighting difference. So Ix-chel, if you want to choose the right side for explaining the problem, and then the left side for explaining the solution, then you can do that. Whenever you are in the left side, you are explaining that the problem, the challenges, what went wrong. And when you're on the right side, you're explaining, but this is what we did, this is what it solves, or this is the solution. So sometimes having this movement can make the point stronger and clearer. So there are people that use the space. Yes, I totally suggest people to use the space, but be very, very careful about the idea they are sending with this moving around. So I don't suggest people go walking and walking and walking. No, walk, stay, walk, stay.
Okay, that's very cool. Actually, I just want to add a story. I love the idea of talking. One side is the problem, the other side is the solution. I had a friend of mine that she gave a TED talk and a TEDx talk, and she actually wrote on her hands, right, the problems and the solutions. So she would gesture with one hand when she was talking about the sad parts and the problem parts, and then she would talk with the other hand and gesture with the other hand when she was doing the fun and great parts, right? So she did this routine, and it helped her remember that she needs to say those things, right? And at the same time, it kind of gives the audience like a more consistent thing. So that's amazing too.
Yes, I mean, having this relationship between what you're saying and the gestures, because when you are, as the audience will focus on both things. So if you are consistent, then it's even better.
Yeah.
There's another question.
That was a question from Baslur. The question about the podium, and that's from Baslur from Bangladesh. So Pedro, he says, is this worth to submit lectures for beginners, or about or like the beginning thing, like foundations, or not, or you have to always be advanced in things?
Well, it's interesting, that question, because you have two types of conferences. One, they only want to showcase the newest technologies. That is the place for learning about the crazy new things that are out there. But there are more conferences that are creating their own new tracks or the basic tracks, and they refer to the newcomers. One, it's regarding the experience of the speaker. So they have this newcomer track where other speakers are urged to go to see these newcomer speakers and give them feedback. They also have this program like mentors. You say, I would really want to have a mentor in this topic and also as a speaker, and they will try to match you with somebody that either talks about this topic or it's a good speaker. That's in terms of the proficiency of the speakers. Now let's talk about the topic in itself. I have seen in a lot of jobs all around the world that they are actually facing that question. Like, we want to attract students because we have to start early. That's our promise for the future, the students. So we don't want to face them with very crazy topics at the beginning. So what they are doing, and I find it that very useful, is they have, like, for example, in every job meeting, 2 sessions. One, it's with the introduction level, like foundation. Let's use Git good. Let's use Gradle. Let's use Maven. This is the new tool for documentation, things like that. Things that are going to make the life of any developer really good, like how to do code reviews, etc., etc. And the second session, it's more advanced topics like growl. Let's talk about now about compilers, garbage collectors, things that will be very tough for the newcomers or people that are just starting. And the added bonus is sometimes in this job, they have noticed that the students or the beginners do actually stay for the second session. Because their idea at the beginning was like, okay, the students come to the first session and they can leave. And then the remaining people are the hardcore developers that really want to go to the next levels and see the future. And they're surprised that the students stayed for the second session. So jobs are doing this more often than conferences. Conferences are trying to introduce this kind of tracks in less proportion, but the effort is there. So please put in your abstract that that's your main motivator. That even though you're going to explain a basic topic, which I say basic because they are not basic topics, if you're going to give a different perspective, or you're going to explain it in a different way that you think it's better to grasp those concepts or maybe difficult concepts in a basic topic.
Yeah, and sometimes when you talk about basic topics, right, it's like, it could be a basic thing of an advanced topic, right? If you talk about, I don't know, introduction to microservices, for example, or introduction to big data. I mean, those could be basic talks on very advanced things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It all depends on you, on what you want to do.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I was gonna ask another question, but there's Sebastian. He says here, do you have any recovery strategy in case you run out of time without being able to present everything you planned? So how do you deal with time? Time. Look, let me say this. Time is a question that everyone asks, right? I know how to talk so much in so little time and all of this. So how do you handle time?
Okay, there's actually 3 ideas behind it. There are people that have a very flexible kind of session, that they have key elements in their slides, and what they want to do or they like to do is to start the session and ask questions. I mean, I'm going to, for example, on Saturday, we were in a conference, and I was going to talk about integration tests and containers. And this is about how we solved some issues in my previous project. We were going to use test containers, the library. But before I started, I had some slides about test containers, a little bit about the theory, in case I had some people that didn't know about test containers or didn't have the basic ideas that I want them to have in their mind to go deeply into test containers. Because this is the important thing. I cannot talk about the benefits of test containers if people do not know about the nightmares of not using them or what are the challenges that they will face. So I had this 15 slides about the basic concepts I want people to have and where the root of the problem was, so that test container can solve that one. So that's exactly what I do. I have different kind of slides, and I can make adjustments on the fly depending of the audience. Because remember, this is all about the audience that you have right there. That's the most important thing. I mean, because we can all download videos about the conference and watch them later on. But why you want people to go to the conferences is because of this unique opportunity that they can interact with the speaker and the speaker can make adjustments. So what do? I ask so I can decide if I have to go deep in one side of the slides or I can pass through. Again, I really know that regardless of what are the questions, regardless of what is the level of the audience, I want the audience to leave with a specific idea in mind. So those slides, like 5 slides, I have to talk about them no matter what. So I have this kind of a slide, like optional slides, slides that go deep into the topic, and the main part of the session. So this is my style. But there are people that are so passionate, very, very passionate, that they do like a workshop of 4 hours in 45 minutes. And the people get overloaded with information. Sometimes that's good, but depends on the audience. Sometimes if the audience is already tired, it's after lunch, the second or the third day, there was a party the day before. So, you know, the audience is going to be a little tired. That's when I said to them, you know, maybe you can make the session about the possibilities. They don't need like the workshop kind of session right now. They need to know that there is a library that can do this, and they can go to that place to learn about it. Sometimes it's not the workshop type of session that you overload your audience, but the salesman pitch session where you say, if you have this problem, this is the solution. I'm going to show you that it's not very complex, but I'm not going to explain you the whole solution because we have time right now. So again, it's what you feel most comfortable. You can go with the workshop type, overloading information, the slides completely full of code. You can go with the sales pitch, where you explain the problem, the solution. You don't explain how the solution was done, or you have this mix, depends. Remember, the third one is more complex because it requires the audience to actually interact with you. And if you feel like scared of your audience, sometimes the audience is more scared of you and your questions. So that's tough because you have to break the ice and you have to convince people that speaking up is going to be something good. I will always go with the third version. My husband always go with the first one, overloading. He wants them to have like the solution there. He wants them to, they know the solution, which in the topics that he likes to give, it's amazing because you literally go to the code, copy paste, and that's it. The solution is there. And but I do not recommend his sessions after lunch, obviously, because you blink and you lost like 5 libraries. But the styles.
Cool. Very, very cool. So before we wrap this thing up here, let me quickly tell everyone. So Ix-chel who is Ix-chel who is on Twitter. So there is a button here to the side, and you go right now. You should just click on the button. Go follow her on Twitter. And so she's a Java champion, Oracle developer champion. She's an open source advocate. She's been, following her. You can go and ask her questions about submitting talks to conference and things like this. So you should just kind of go right now. And so it's the last few minutes. So if you have any more questions that you haven't asked yet, go ahead and ask right now. So Ix-chel, you talked a little bit, about the sphere and everything. There's one question here that I thought was very interesting, and the person asks, that's his main challenge on giving talks is the fear of not being able to answer random questions. So you just mentioned about questions and getting people to ask questions. So what do you think? You said that's sometimes the audience is afraid of you. So how do you handle questions in general?
First of all, be very honest always. So if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know the answer. But send me a tweet, send me a message, send me an email. If I don't have the answer, maybe I can look for it or ask my contact and I can solve your problem. So honestly, first. Second, always repeat the question, because sometimes we miss something and if you, because it's important that you understand the question in first place. So repeat the question, then the person there can see if you got the right question. And yes, try to be very specific in the answer. Like, do not try to elaborate a second session in the answer. But yes, honestly, if I don't know it, I don't know it. But I can get you the answer. And do get the answer, please.
That's very cool. So one tip that I give in terms of answer questions, a lot of times, and you can see me doing this here, right? You know, people ask questions, and when I'm repeating the question, I kind of rephrase, should be more generic, right? Because sometimes people ask the question very specific, and it's not, you know, the answer is not going to be very useful for everyone. So a lot of times you can do this. You hear the question, and you can rephrase the question, be a little bit more specific. So maybe the exactly question that the person asked it, you might not be able to answer, but you're able to answer a little bit more generic question, and then you say, you know, now for your specific points, come talk to me after, and I'll discuss with your specific points. So that's another way to handle random questions, right?
Yes, totally. And sometimes it's also very important to see the generic solution, not the specific case. Like,
Right,
for
that's
example,
true. Yeah.
yes. How do you solve this in Tomcat? Well, and you say, well, probably Tomcat is very narrow. Maybe we should go into the abstract layer. It's going to be easier, or something like that.
Very cool. So Sebastian is actually going to be giving his first talk at Oracle Code One in a month from now, right? So he's saying, you know, from your experience, is the crowd at Oracle Code One easy to interact with?
Yes, I think so. They are very open. I mean, they usually, most of the attendees are from the US. They tend to talk. If you were unveiling this talk, for example, in the Scandinavian countries, Russian or German audience, I will totally prepare yourself not to have your questions answered. But the US crowd and the international crowd that gathers at Oracle Code One, it's an interactive one. So don't worry.
Okay, very cool. So Ix-chel, do you have, so, you know, do you wanna finalize with something that you wanna say to end here? Oh, actually, no. There's more questions. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you right there. We're not gonna end without asking every question. So Drazen asked how important it is to think about putting some story in your technical talk compared to just elaborate the facts about the topic.
Well, I will go to a scientific article, and it makes total sense when after I read it. It said that's totally obvious and logical. When you start with a story, people try to anticipate what is going to happen. So if you are going to present a new way of doing things, if you are going to present a new library, and you start by saying, this is the best you can do, sometimes you will get this kind of, no, wait, why? But if you start, as human beings, if you start with a story, as I said, people will try to predict. At the moment they try to do that, their levels of anxiety decreases. The openness to new ideas increases. So this is proven. If you start with a story, you will get more positive feedback on whatever you're trying to expose. So even if it's a technical talk, I start with the story. Because if I'm presenting a use case, then it is a story of my team made of people that had problems, that had to work on Fridays, evenings, which everybody hated. So there's always this human factor, even if we're talking about test containers.
Okay, that's very good. All right, thanks a lot, Drazen, for the question. So Ix-chel, do you wanna kind of wrap it up?
Please, we need more speakers at different conferences. Diversity only makes it better. We always need a different perspective on things we have seen. This is the best way to go to international conferences because you can apply for this kind, the one I mentioned with Javeland. If you are not feeling very comfortable, apply for the newcomers track and you will get a lot of support. So this is the best way to start your career if you are interested in this, or to increase your network of, yes, your network. And who knows? I mean, to tell you the truth, to Bruno and to the whole audience, we ended up traveling around the world because of conference, because of open source, because one day I said, I can't pay that entrance to that really big conference. So the only way to be there was as a speaker. So I said to myself, so you have to prepare for one session and you have to be very good at that. And that's how I started.
Very cool. Very cool. So just one last question here. So when you start speaking, did that help you become a Java champion? Basil is asking, how did you become a Java champion?
Yes, that is an integral part. I mean, as a Java champion, it's at least the way it came to me. I was not looking towards that, but I was always passionate about sharing knowledge. I was passionate about explaining things. After I understood them, the best way to check that I understood things was by explaining that to other people. And so for me was that, how do we help the fellow developer make their lives easier? And then the conference came. It turned out that I wasn't that bad at giving conferences. It turns out that the topics I chose or the topics I talked about were good. Also, this idea of sharing knowledge, all that made me a candidate for being a Java champion. So yes, conference help, working on open source help. Yeah.
That's it. So this is Ix-chel, who is Java champion, Oracle developer Oracle developer champion, open source advocate. And if you haven't followed her yet, go ahead to the link. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you're probably going to see the link on the description below. So, thanks very much. Thanks, Ix-chel. It was amazing to have you here. Thanks, everyone, for being here with your questions. This is what makes this whole thing interactive and great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So just, Sebastian says, thank you very much, Ix-chel. What you said totally defined today would definitely help me. Rodrigo saying, awesome session. Thanks a lot for all the tips. And while we're doing this, Paulo messaged me on another channel saying, Bruno, this session being recorded. I really want to review this message many times. Yes, Paulo, it's being recorded. So congratulations. You are an inspiration for us. I'm feeling blessed. Thank you. Thank you and Bruno. Thanks a lot, Paulo. Thanks for this. Pedro says thanks. Basil says thank you very much. So thanks, Ix-chel. Thanks a lot for sharing all your knowledge.
Sure. Anytime.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.